The morning sun crept over the hills of Redwood Valley, turning the mist into gold. The ranch stretched wide across the horizon. Fences, open fields, and an old barn built by Tom Branson's grandfather 50 years ago. Tom leaned against his truck, sipping coffee from a tin mug, when he noticed something wrong in the distance. The eastern fence line, the one separating his land from the new Redwood Valley estates, was broken. He frowned, setting his mug down. That fence had been fine yesterday. He climbed onto his ATV and drove out. As he got closer, his gut tightened. 3 fence posts were snapped clean in half. Wires twisted and tire tracks cut deep into the dirt. Tom crouched down, running a calloused hand over the splintered wood. The break was fresh, less than a day old. Then he saw it. A small white plastic sign tangled in the wire. It read, Redwood Valley, HOA, Private Property Enforcement. His jaw clenched. You've got to be kidding me. He pulled out his phone and snapped pictures. The damage, the tire marks, the sign. When he drove back toward the ranch house, the anger simmered in his chest. This wasn't the first time. Ever since the HOA expansion had reached the edge of his land, they'd been pushing. Letters, fines, even visits from their president, Karen Whitmore. Karen liked to call herself the guardian of community standards. Tom called her something else entirely. By noon, a black SUV rolled up the driveway, crunching gravel. He didn't even need to see the plate to know who it was. Karen stepped out, perfectly dressed as always, tailored jacket, oversized sunglasses, a clipboard in hand. Morning, Mr. Branson, she said with a sugary smile. Lovely property you've got here. Tom crossed his arms. You're trespassing. Oh, I'm not trespassing, she said lightly. I'm performing a courtesy inspection. We've had several complaints about your fencing and livestock wandering near Redwood Valley's boundary. Tom let out a sharp laugh. My cattle don't even go near your land, and that fence was just fine until someone ran it over. Karen tilted her head. Accidents happen. But since your property borders ours, we'd appreciate you upgrading your fencing to match our community standards. It would really help the aesthetic of the neighborhood. He stepped forward, close enough to see his reflection in her sunglasses. My ranch isn't part of your neighborhood. Her smile didn't waver. Not yet. That made his stomach drop. What's that supposed to mean? Oh, nothing official, she said, waving a manicured hand. But Redwood Valley's growth plan is expanding. Eventually, the county will rezone these outer lands. It's only a matter of time before we're all one community. Wouldn't it be easier to cooperate now? Tom's voice was low and steady. This land's been in my family for 3 generations. It's not for sale. Karen sighed dramatically, flipping a page on her clipboard. That's unfortunate, because until this boundary issue is resolved, we'll have to file a safety complaint with the county. You understand? Procedure. Tom glared at her. Get off my property, Karen. She hesitated, lips pursed, then turned toward her SUV. You'll see, Mr. Branson. Redwood Valley always protects its own interests. The SUV kicked up dust as it rolled away. Tom stood there for a long time, staring at the broken fence. He knew a warning when he heard one. That night, Tom worked under the floodlights to repair the damage. The air was cool, crickets chirping in the grass. He hammered the last nail in place and leaned against the fence post, wiping sweat from his brow. Then, headlights flashed in the distance. A vehicle slowed near the edge of the property, then idled for a moment. Tom's eyes narrowed. The same black SUV. Thought so, he muttered, grabbing his phone and snapping a picture. But before he could zoom in, the SUV sped off into the darkness. He stood there in silence, the night suddenly colder than before. The next morning, a letter was waiting in his mailbox. Official HOA letterhead. Notice of violation. Unauthorized construction along the Redwood Valley boundary. Immediate compliance required. Fines. $1,000 per day. Tom crushed the letter in his fist. This wasn't about fences anymore. It was about power. He called Emily Hart, a local friend who worked at the county assessor's office. They filed a complaint already? She asked, shocked. Faster than a wildfire, Tom said. They're trying to box me in. Karen's been lobbying for expansion permits, Emily said quietly. If she gets them, your ranch will fall inside HOA jurisdiction. Tom's stomach sank. She's not taking my land." "Then you'd better be ready," Emily warned. "Karen plays dirty, and she's got the county in her pocket." That evening, as the sun dipped low and shadows stretched across the fields, Tom walked his fence line again. Every post, every wire, every inch of soil meant something to him. This wasn't just land. It was his family's story, his father's legacy, his life's work, and now it was under siege. He paused at the eastern edge, where the hills rolled toward the pristine homes of Redwood Valley estates. He could almost see Karen's world from here. Shiny cars, perfect lawns, rules for everything. Tom tightened his grip on the fence post. "She picked the wrong rancher," he said under his breath. The next few days passed in tense silence. The only sounds on the ranch were the creak of old gates and the lowing of cattle in the distance. But Tom Branson knew it was the calm before the storm. On the fourth morning, his prediction came true. A white SUV with the Redwood Valley HOA logo rolled up the dirt road and stopped beside his mailbox. Two men in khaki uniforms stepped out, clipboard in hand, mirrored sunglasses, and the stiff confidence of people who thought rules made them untouchable. "Mr. Branson?" one of them called. Tom stepped off the porch, hands in his pockets. "That's right." "We're here to deliver a final notice," the man said, flipping through his folder. "According to HOA standards and Redwood County zoning policy, your eastern property line encroaches on designated community land." Tom's voice was flat. "That's a lie, and you know it." The man didn't flinch. "You're required to remove all non-conforming structures, including fencing, within 72 hours or face legal action." Tom took a step closer. "My fence hasn't moved an inch in 60 years. You boys should learn the difference between a map and a power grab." The second officer, younger, nervous, spoke up. "We're just doing our job, sir." "Then go do it somewhere else," Tom said. They exchanged a look, then handed him a sealed envelope. "You've been officially notified." When they drove off, Tom tore open the letter. The fine had already doubled. Attached was a legal notice citing potential property annexation under the Redwood Valley Expansion Act. It felt like a punch to the gut. He knew what that meant. Karen had found a loophole. That evening, Tom met Sheriff Logan at the diner. The sheriff had known the Branson family for decades, ever since Tom's father used to bring him beef jerky during hunting season. Logan listened quietly as Tom laid out the letters, the photos, the timeline. Finally, he leaned back, rubbing his jaw. "I've seen this before. HOAs like Redwood Valley get greedy. They try to annex old farmland for development, call it progress." "So what do I do?" Tom asked. "Keep records. Don't rise to their bait, and don't give them a reason to say you're a threat. Karen's the kind who'll push until you snap. Then she'll use it against you." Tom nodded, but his hands were still clenched. "She already crossed the line, literally." Logan gave a slow nod. "Then maybe it's time she realizes who she's dealing with." That night, Tom sat at his kitchen table under the hum of the ceiling fan. The house was quiet except for the soft tick of the clock. He spread out maps, deeds, and old survey documents, everything his father had kept locked in the cedar chest for decades. And there it was, the original county deed, dated 1961, clearly showing the ranch boundaries, signed, sealed, and notarized. The line separating his property and the HOA land hadn't moved. Not 1 inch. Tom smiled grimly. "Gotcha." He scanned everything, then called Emily Hart at the county office. "I need this verified officially," he said, "and fast." She agreed, promising to pull the archived records first thing in the morning. The next day, Tom drove into town to get supplies, wire, tools, nails. But as he stepped out of the hardware store, he noticed people whispering. 2 men near the entrance nodded toward him, smirking. A woman he'd known for years turned away when he said hello. Something was wrong. He walked over to the bulletin board by the counter, and there it was. A printed notice from the Redwood Valley HOA, complete with his name. Community alert. Unpermitted construction and unsafe practices have been observed on the property adjoining Redwood Valley Estates. Residents are advised to avoid the area due to potential hazards. Tom tore it down, heart pounding. Karen wasn't just coming for his land. She was coming for his reputation. That afternoon, he saw her again, standing at the edge of the property line in that same white SUV. This time, she wasn't alone. A local news van was parked beside her. As Tom approached, he caught a few words drifting through the air: non-compliance, safety risk, and community nuisance. Karen turned with that perfect smile as the reporter's camera panned to him. "Mr. Branson," she said brightly, "would you like to comment on the ongoing property dispute?" Tom stopped short, his voice calm but sharp. "The only dispute here is between truth and greed's losing." The reporter tried to ask more, but Karen smoothly cut in. "We only want what's best for Redwood Valley. It's unfortunate that some individuals refuse to adapt to progress." Tom stared at her. "You mean people who don't want to sell?" Karen smiled wider, the camera catching the glint of satisfaction in her eyes. "Everyone has a price, Mr. Branson." "Not this time," he said quietly, then turned and walked back toward his truck. Behind him, he could hear the reporter asking Karen for another quote. She laughed lightly. "Change is never easy, but eventually, even the most stubborn landowners realize it's better to join the community than fight it." That night, Tom didn't sleep. He sat on the porch, shotgun across his lap, watching the ridge. The moonlight spilled across the open field like a silver tide. Then, around 2 a.m., the sound came, soft, rhythmic, unmistakable. Tires on gravel. He flicked off the porch light and stepped into the shadows. A pair of headlights crawled along the fence line, then stopped. 2 figures got out. Tom gripped the shotgun, staying still. They walked along the fence, shining flashlights, whispering. One of them reached into the truck bed and pulled out a canister. Gasoline. Tom's pulse thundered in his ears. He moved quietly through the dark, heart steady, every step measured. But before he could reach them, one of the men shouted, spotting the red light of his motion camera blinking nearby. "Go, go!" They jumped into the truck and sped off into the night, gravel spraying behind them. Tom ran to the spot where they'd been. The smell of gas lingered in the air. He looked toward the dark horizon of Redwood Valley, the glow of its perfect houses barely visible through the trees. His voice was low and cold. "You just made this personal." The morning came with smoke. Tom woke to the smell of it before he even opened his eyes. Sharp, chemical, wrong. He bolted upright and saw the orange flicker through his window. The barn was on fire. He ran barefoot across the yard, every muscle burning as the flames tore through the old wood. The roof was already caving in, sparks shooting high into the dawn sky. "Come on!" he yelled, grabbing the hose, but it was useless. The flames had too much air, too much fuel. By the time the fire department arrived, the barn was nothing but a skeleton of blackened beams. When the last ember died, Tom stood in the ash, his face streaked with soot and sweat. The air reeked of gasoline. Sheriff Logan arrived minutes later, eyes hard. "Jesus, Tom," he said quietly. "You hurt?" "No, but whoever did this wanted to send a message." Logan crouched by one of the scorched fence posts. His flashlight caught the glint of a melted canister buried in the dirt. "Accelerant," he said. "You were right." Tom's jaw clenched. "You think it's them?" Logan didn't answer. He didn't have to. By afternoon, the HOA's social media page was already spinning the story. "Tragic accident near Redwood Valley Estates last night. Outdated wiring suspected. Our thoughts are with Mr. Branson." Tom's hand shook as he read it. Outdated wiring? The barn didn't even have electricity. He looked out toward the property line where Karen's pristine fences gleamed in the sun. For a long time, he just stared, silent, steady. Then he went to his workshop. He replaced the burned cameras with new ones, this time hidden better. He wired them into a solar battery backup and placed 2 more along the creek where the intruder's tire tracks had been. He wasn't just protecting his land now. He was hunting. That night, he sat with Logan again, this time at the sheriff's office. "I can't prove it's them," Tom said. "But I know it is." Logan rubbed his temples. "Karen's connected. The HOA board has money, lawyers, and half the county council in their pocket. If we move without solid evidence, it'll get buried." "Then I'll get it myself," Tom said quietly. "Tom, I've played by the rules long enough. They burned my family's barn, My father built that with his own hands. Logan sighed. Just be careful. If she's desperate enough to torch property, she won't stop there. Tom nodded, but his mind was already elsewhere, tracing plans, routes, camera feeds. 2 days later, Karen came by in person. She didn't knock. She just stepped out of her white SUV and called across the yard, voice sugar sweet. Tom, such a tragedy. We were all so worried. Tom didn't answer. He was rebuilding the fence, hammering in silence. Karen walked closer, her heels crunching on gravel. I heard the fire started near your storage area. You really should have updated your equipment. These old properties are such a liability. Tom stopped hammering and looked up slowly. You sound awful sure of yourself for someone who wasn't here. She smiled faintly. I make it my business to stay informed. After all, we have to protect the community. From what? She tilted her head. From people who can't let go of the past. Tom's eyes narrowed. You mean people who won't sell? Karen's smile widened just a little. Everything has its season, Mr. Branson. You can hold on to this land all you want, but Redwood Valley is growing, and you can't stop it. Tom turned back to his work, voice flat. We'll see. When she finally left, he noticed something new. A small drone hovering above the property, its red light blinking as it recorded. He picked up a rock and hurled it. The drone jerked and tumbled into the dirt. Enough was enough. That night, Tom checked his hidden cameras. At 2:14 a.m., a dark SUV appeared on the feed, stopping near the eastern line again. 2 men got out, scanning the area with flashlights. But this time, he had them in full view. Faces, plates, and the HOA logo on the back of their jackets. He smiled grimly. He didn't sleep that night, either. He was too busy backing up every file to 3 separate drives. The next morning, he went to see Emily Hart at the county office again. She greeted him with a frown. Tom, you might want to sit down. She turned her monitor toward him. A new filing had been entered, a redevelopment petition submitted by the Redwood Valley HOA. It labeled his land as abandoned agricultural property slated for community expansion. Tom blinked. Abandoned? I live there. I know, Emily said softly, but they filed under the state redevelopment clause. They're claiming your structures are unsafe and your farm is a hazard to nearby residents. He felt the blood rush to his head. They burned it down and now they're calling it unsafe. I'll try to delay the review, she said. But you don't have much time. They're pushing this through fast. Tom exhaled slowly. Then I push back faster. That evening, the HOA held a community safety meeting at the Redwood Valley clubhouse. Tom showed up uninvited. The room went quiet when he walked in. Karen, standing at the front in her white blazer, smiled like she'd been expecting him. Mr. Branson, she said sweetly. This is a private meeting. Funny, he said, pulling a small flash drive from his pocket, because what I have concerns every person in this room. He plugged it into the projector, and the footage began to play. Grainy night vision showing 2 men with HOA jackets pouring gas near his fence. Gasps filled the room. Karen's face froze, just for a second. Then she composed herself. This doesn't prove anything, she said quickly. That could be anyone. Sheriff Logan stepped in from the back of the room. Already checked. Those 2 men work for your HOA's private maintenance team. The room erupted. Karen tried to speak, but the crowd drowned her out. Angry voices, shouting questions, demanding answers. Tom turned to Logan. You got what you need? Logan nodded. Oh, I've got plenty. Karen's mask cracked for the first time. You think you've won, Tom? You have no idea who you're dealing with. Tom's voice was calm, low, and final. Neither do you. He left the clubhouse as the shouting echoed behind him, the once perfect Redwood Valley now cracking under the weight of its own lies. That night, Tom stood again at the edge of his land, looking out over the valley. The embers of the barn still glowed faintly in the dark. He wasn't just defending his ranch anymore. He was fighting for the truth and the soul of Redwood Valley itself. For the first time in weeks, Tom Branson slept through the night. When he woke, the morning sun was pouring across the ridge, golden and sharp, a reminder that the world keeps moving, even after fire and betrayal. But as he stepped onto the porch, his calm faded. Down by the fence, A county work crew was hammering stakes into the ground. Bright orange flags flapped in the breeze. Survey markers. Tom's jaw clenched. They were marking his land again. He marched down the slope. "Hey!" he shouted. "You got a permit for this?" The foreman looked up from his clipboard. "We're under instruction from the Redwood Valley HOA Development Committee. Land reassessment for community expansion." Tom's voice was like gravel. "That reassessment is illegal. There's an open investigation." The man hesitated. "Talk to them, sir." "We just follow orders." Tom looked at the flags, a dozen of them, cutting through the field like scars. He kicked one over. "Not on my land, you don't." The foreman muttered something and motioned his crew to pack up. But Tom knew what it meant. Karen was still moving pieces. Even after the fire, even after the footage, she wasn't done. That afternoon, Sheriff Logan drove out to the ranch. He climbed out of his cruiser holding a thick envelope. "Got the lab report," he said. "Gasoline residue on the canisters matches the type used by the HOA maintenance trucks." "The DA's reviewing it." Tom exhaled. "So it's over?" Logan shook his head. "Not yet. Karen's already lawyering up. Her attorney's claiming the footage was doctored and that the men acted independently." Tom frowned. "Independently?" "They were wearing company jackets." "Yeah, and the HOA just fired them this morning. No records, no contracts, no paper trail. They'll make it look like you set them up." Tom laughed bitterly. "She's good." "Evil, but good." Logan leaned against the truck. "We'll need more than footage. We need her involved, directly. Phone calls, signatures, payments, something she can't erase." Tom crossed his arms, eyes narrowing. "Then we set a trap." The plan took shape slowly. Logan explained that Karen was organizing a Redwood Renewal Gala, a charity event to raise funds for the supposed redevelopment project. The perfect chance for her to brag, boast, and slip up. Tom knew she'd invite the county board, business leaders, even the local press. He also knew she wouldn't expect him to show up. "Let her talk," Logan said. "We'll have an undercover deputy at the bar, mic'd up. If she admits to paying those men or falsifying records, we'll have her cold." Tom smirked. "Guess I should find something nice to wear." The night of the gala came fast. The Redwood Valley Country Club glittered with lights, champagne glasses clinking, soft jazz floating over polished marble floors. Karen stood near the stage, flawless as ever, her smile bright enough to blind. Tom entered quietly through the side door. He'd traded his work jacket for a clean black suit, but he still looked out of place among the crowd of manicured hands and perfect teeth. Karen saw him within seconds. Her smile faltered, then tightened. "Well," she said, approaching with mock warmth. "I didn't expect you here. Lost, Mr. Branson?" Tom took a sip of his drink. "Just curious how you plan to rebuild a community on stolen land." Her eyes glinted. "Still clinging to conspiracy theories, I see. You should be careful with accusations like that. They have consequences." Tom leaned in slightly. "So does arson." For a moment, something flickered behind her expression. Anger, fear, something darker. But it vanished as fast as it came. She chuckled. "You really think I had anything to do with that little fire?" "Please," Tom shrugged. "The sheriff thinks otherwise." Karen's gaze darted toward the bar, exactly where Logan's undercover deputy was sitting, recording every word. Then she smiled again. "You poor man. You've lived on that dusty land so long, you think everything that happens there matters. But Redwood Valley is bigger than you. We're expanding with or without your permission." Tom raised an eyebrow. "So you admit you've already started construction?" Karen hesitated, just a second too long. "We're preparing," she said. "Certain. Arrangements have been made, like paying off inspectors, or maybe hiring men who know how to make a fire hazard disappear." Her mask cracked again, just slightly. "Careful," she said under her breath. "You don't want to end up like your barn." Tom smiled coldly. "Thanks for saying that on record." Her eyes widened, and before she could react, Logan stepped forward, flashing his badge. "Karen White," he said, voice calm but firm. "You're under investigation for arson, conspiracy to defraud the county, and falsification of zoning documents." The room froze. Cameras turned. Guests gasped. Karen's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Then she tried to recover. This is outrageous. You can't prove any of... Logan held up his phone. Everything you just said is recorded and time-stamped. The color drained from her face. Tom stood still, silent, watching the Queen of Redwood Valley crumble. By midnight, the gala was over. Deputies escorted Karen out in handcuffs as reporters shouted questions. Tom stepped outside into the cool night air. The valley stretched out below like a sea of dark glass. Logan joined him, lighting a cigarette. "You did good tonight." Tom nodded. "Not good enough yet. She's slippery. She'll find a way to fight it." "Maybe," Logan said. "But this time, she's cornered." Tom looked out at the distant ridge where his barn once stood. "Cornered animals are the most dangerous." Logan frowned. "You think she'll still come after you?" Tom's voice was low. "I don't think she ever stopped." The next morning proved him right. As the sun rose over Redwood Valley, Tom's phone buzzed with a message. No number. Just text. "You shouldn't have crossed me, Branson. This isn't over." He stared at the words, then deleted the message. But deep down, he knew it wasn't a bluff. Karen White might be in custody, but she still had allies, and Redwood Valley wasn't finished bleeding yet. 3 days after the gala, Redwood Valley wasn't the same. The HOA office was locked. The development crews were gone, and the manicured lawns that once gleamed like glass now stood still and empty. But beneath the quiet, something ugly was stirring. Tom Branson could feel it. The local paper had run the story. Redwood Valley HOA president arrested in arson conspiracy. The community was divided, half furious, half in denial. Some homeowners even drove past Tom's ranch shouting curses. Others honked in support, but he didn't care about headlines. He wanted one thing: closure. Karen White was out on bail, and that meant the fight wasn't over. Sheriff Logan stopped by the ranch that afternoon, his cruiser crunching over the gravel. "She's got a court date set," he said, stepping out. "The DA's confident. Between the video, her statements, and those emails we recovered, she's cooked." Tom nodded. "Good. Maybe now Redwood Valley can breathe again." Logan hesitated. "Maybe. But I need you to stay sharp, Tom. We're hearing chatter. HOA board members trying to clean up loose ends." Tom raised a brow. "Loose ends? Meaning you?" Tom chuckled without humor. "Let them try." That night, the valley was too quiet. Tom sat by the window with a cup of coffee, watching the moonlight spill over the fence line. The crickets had gone silent. Never a good sign. Then he saw it. Headlights at the ridge. Not one, but 3 vehicles. They rolled down slowly, engines low, lights dimmed. Tom's pulse steadied. He reached for the rifle by the door and clicked off the porch light. The truck stopped near the old barn site. Doors opened. 4 men stepped out, dark clothes, gloves, and masks. They moved fast, carrying gas cans. Tom lifted his rifle and fired once into the air. "Drop it!" he shouted. The men froze. One of them raised a pistol and fired back, the shot whistling past Tom's head and bearing into the porch beam. He ducked and rolled behind a hay trough, heart pounding. Another shot cracked the night. Then tires screeched, one of the trucks backing toward the road. Tom fired again, this time into the air above them, forcing them to scatter. Within seconds, the vehicles roared back up the hill, disappearing into the dark. When silence returned, Tom stood, chest heaving. He called Logan immediately. 4 men, armed, tried to burn what's left of the barn. Logan's voice on the other end was clipped and serious. "We're on our way. Stay inside, Tom. Lock everything down." By the time deputies arrived, the intruders were gone. Tire tracks led to the main road and vanished. But one thing they did leave behind: a dropped phone. Logan bagged it carefully. "If we're lucky, this gives us a name." Tom looked toward the hills, his jaw tight. "I already know who sent them." 2 days later, the phone cracked everything open. Forensic techs pulled messages linking the attackers to Nathan Cole, Karen's second-in-command on the HOA board, and one of the developers backing the expansion project. There were payment records, photos of the ranch, even coordinates. Logan slammed the folder shut. "They weren't just trying to scare you. They were cleaning up evidence." Tom's voice was calm but heavy. "Then it's time we finish this." The showdown came faster than anyone expected. Logan got a tip. Nathan Cole was meeting with 2 county officials and Karen's lawyer at the Redwood Valley clubhouse, the same place where the gala had been held. They were finalizing a land transfer under Karen's name before the court could freeze her assets. Tom didn't hesitate. "Let's end it," he said. Logan nodded, calling for backup, but Tom was already heading out the door. The clubhouse loomed against the stormy sky, lights flickering inside. Through the glass, Tom could see them, Cole pacing, the lawyer typing, the officials watching nervously. Then the door opened. Karen stepped in, handcuffed wrist still bruised from before, her lawyer trailing behind. Tom froze in the shadows. She wasn't supposed to be there. She was under bail restriction. But she looked calm, almost smug. He could see her mouth moving through the glass, couldn't hear the words, but the meaning was clear. She was signing something. Logan's voice came over the radio in Tom's ear. "Hold position! SWAT's 2 minutes out." But Tom wasn't listening anymore. Karen looked up, and for a moment, their eyes met through the window. That same smile, cold, perfect, poisonous. Then she reached for a lighter. Tom moved. He burst through the door as the flame caught the edge of a gas-soaked rag near the wall. "Karen!" he shouted. She turned just as the fire whooshed upward. Papers flew. The lawyer screamed. Cole grabbed for the documents, but they ignited instantly. Tom tackled Karen, dragging her away from the spreading fire. "Are you insane?" he shouted. She spat, her voice cracking. "You took everything from me!" Logan and the deputy stormed in, dragging Cole and the others out as smoke filled the room. Tom hauled Karen outside into the rain just as the fire engulfed the roof. Flashing lights lit up the parking lot. Sirens. Shouting, chaos. Karen collapsed onto the wet asphalt. Hair plastered to her face, mascara streaked down her cheeks. "You don't get it," she hissed. "Redwood Valley was mine." Tom crouched beside her, soaked and shaking with fury. "It never belonged to you. You just built fences around it." Logan pulled her up, slapping cuffs on again. "Karen White, you're under arrest for arson, conspiracy, and attempted homicide," she screamed as they shoved her into the cruiser. Tom stood there in the rain, watching the flames devour the last piece of her empire. The storm rumbled overhead, and for the first time in months, he felt the valley breathe again. The fire burned long into the night. By the time dawn broke over Redwood Valley, the clubhouse was nothing but blackened ruins, the last monument to greed and corruption finally gone. Tom Branson stood at the edge of the field, rain-soaked boots sinking into the mud, watching the smoke curl into the pale sky. The sheriff's men were packing up, hauling evidence and debris. Karen White was gone, taken to the county jail. Her empire turned to ash, but even with the fire out, the valley felt hollow, quiet in a way that wasn't peaceful, just empty. Sheriff Logan walked up beside him, coffee in hand. "You did it," he said simply. Tom didn't answer at first. His eyes were fixed on the horizon, where the morning light touched the hills. "She'll still try," he finally said. "From a cell, from a courtroom. She won't stop." Logan nodded. "Maybe, but the DA's got everything he needs. Emails, recordings, eyewitnesses. She's finished." Tom took a long breath. The scent of wet earth and smoke mixed in the air. "She said Redwood Valley was hers," he murmured. "But look at it now. She couldn't control a single sunrise." Over the next week, the valley began to change. Without Karen pulling the strings, the HOA fractured. Half the board resigned. The other half begged forgiveness from the homeowners they'd bullied for years. The expansion project was canceled. The land annexation revoked. Tom received an official letter from the county, simple black ink on white paper. "All claims against Branson Ranch are hereby dismissed. Property boundaries confirmed and protected under county record." He set it on the table beside his father's old deed and smiled faintly. The circle was complete. One morning, Emily Hart stopped by with a small brown envelope. She smiled when Tom answered the door. "I figured you'd want to see this." Inside were photographs, old county records she'd found while combing through archives. One showed a young man standing where Tom was now, hammer in hand, next to the first fence post on the ranch. Tom recognized the face instantly. His father. Redwood Valley. 1961, Emily said softly. Before any of this existed. Tom's voice caught a little. Before the rules. Before the gates, Emily nodded. Your family was here first, Tom, and now, thanks to you, it'll stay that way. He looked out toward the ridge. The grass was growing again, green and soft. For the first time in months, birds returned to the fence line. The land was healing. A few evenings later, Logan stopped by for a drink. They sat on the